if you were to do an elevator pitch, like 30 seconds or less, how would you describe the New Zealand media scene right now as we sit here?
It's a really interesting question. I think again, I would just go back to that idea of change, and it is that idea of we don't really know what it looks like at the moment, and it's sort of moving and reshaping constantly. I would say, like, to viewers especially, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there is more change and movement to come in the next maybe even 6 months, and then seeing sort of where things land. But overall, I would say that it's in an interesting spot, and I always keep going back to the word challenging, because I don't want to say it's all bad, but it's definitely challenging for the people working in the media, as well as those who are making those decisions around where to go, and from an audience perspective too. And I just think that we need to have more people in those higher up positions that are making that know a bit more, I guess, about like especially the digital world of news and how to deliver it in that format. Because that was one thing that I kind of worry is I think sometimes media at the moment is still trying to be almost like it's like the old-fashioned traditional approach of media, whereas I think that we need to really start making changes. And I don't know how long that'll take before we have the right people in the right positions that can actually push for that change. I think we're heading in the right direction, but there needs to be a few things that people need to let go of and go, okay, we can't keep delivering it in this way because our audience just isn't there.
Interesting.
That
Anything
sounds
else,
like the
before
6
we move
o'clock
on?
news. That sounds like the 6 o'clock news, doesn't it? Is that the sacred cow of the New Zealand news media?
Yeah, look, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if there were changes to how the 6 o'clock news looks and is presented. I think you'll probably see change quicker with 3 News, with Stuff, just because they are in a position probably where they can look at in the nearer future, like changing how that looks, whether that reduces to a shorter bulletin. I think an hour is just not really sustainable in the current landscape of New Zealand media. Kudos to them for filling an hour every night, but it's a lot, and people don't have the time to sit down for an hour and watch the news. So I think possibly in a shorter format, but I think in the same way that we know that the end of print is probably coming soon, possibly a change, maybe not the end, but definitely a change to the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah. When you say the end of print, I mean, I don't think we'll ever see the end of the newspaper, but it might be the end of the physical print. I mean, when we saw that happening all over the world, something like 7 of them shut down in the UK. I think it was through the global financial crisis, but they had like 15 daily newspapers. I mean, here in New Zealand, you've got the Herald in Auckland, the Post in Wellington, the Press in Dunedin, the ODT, and so it's a bit, I don't know if they'll ever go away, but what you might see is an evolution of how they deliver that news.
Yeah, I think there's still something people really like about having a newspaper and reading the paper. But yeah, in terms of, I guess, when we come back to that, how sustainable it is too, and we were talking before about the money and like where the financial aspect comes from that too, that could potentially play a role in how long that physical paper is still printed. But I don't know too much about, how much it's still bringing in as such, but it'll be interesting to see how that kind of shapes over the next few years.